Welcome to Design Nerds Anonymous, the podcast that sparks curiosity at the intersection of business and design. I'm your host, Amanda Schneider, founder and president at ThinkLab. This season, we're turning our focus to a crucial topic, the B2B decision-making process within the built environment. Now, for the past 6 months, we've been working closely with the decision makers who shape spaces, corporate offices, healthcare facilities, hospitality venues, educational environments, and beyond. We've closely examined the shifts happening directly with end users and key players who know just how layered and complex these choices can be. This season, we're unpacking how decisions are made today, what influences them, how they've evolved, and how product and service providers can better meet the needs of their customers. Welcome to Group Therapy for everyone navigating this intricate and, frankly, sometimes overwhelming world. Today, we're diving into a topic that really hit home during our live events, the art of managing up. As the B2B decision-making process becomes even more complex, so does the need for effective communication, especially when the average project now involves twice as many decision makers, many of whom are executives with limited time and short attention spans. Among all the topics we explored during our live research kickoffs, this idea of managing up resonated the loudest, and it sparked the deepest conversations and debates amongst our audience. To help tackle this challenge, we've invited Dr. J.J. Peterson, Chief of Staff at StoryBrand, to join us. Now, if you're not familiar, StoryBrand is famous for helping organizations clarify their marketing messages. But today, we're flipping the script. Dr. Peterson will show us how to use their marketing framework to sharpen all communication strategies for anyone leading or influencing a project at any level. I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation with JJ. His insights were not only eye-opening, but also immediately actionable. I found myself using some of his tips almost right away in my own work, and I think you'll find them just as impactful. So whether you're a seasoned leader, a new manager finding your footing, or someone navigating the murky middle of our evolving project landscape, Dr. Peterson will share a powerful formula to help you communicate with clarity and impact no matter where you are. Here's my conversation with Dr. J.J. Peterson. We love you guys. We love everything you do at StoryBrand. We use it in workshops with our clients, and one of our team members even used it to write her wedding vows. So I don't know if you've ever had anyone say that.
No, that's amazing.
Big fans over here.
Oh, I love that.
I know that you are not a managing up expert, but I think that all that you do for the world of marketing is really translatable to simplifying your message, making it more impactful. And that's what I'm really excited to talk to you about today.
Absolutely.
Let's start out. Will you just introduce yourself and introduce StoryBrand to our listeners? Some of who, especially the ones that have been through a workshop with us, have probably heard of it, but introduce yourself and StoryBrand.
I'm Dr. J.J. Peterson. I am the head of StoryBrand. So many companies have a hard time explaining what they do. They really are so close to their product and service that they have a hard time explaining it to customers and then getting them to buy into selling and servicing. And we take them through a story framework that helps them clarify their message, invite customers into a beautiful story so they connect with more customers and ultimately grow their business.
So succinct and beautiful per StoryBrand standards here. So our team at ThinkLab has been a long-time fan of your work. We follow Donald Miller, especially on social. I feel like that man can talk about literally anything
For real.
and make it interesting and succinct. We'll be right back with more DNA after this short break.
If we can realize that we just need to form connections with one another on a real, authentic level, that provides support, that provides nurturing. It also provides safety. When all humans feel that sense of safety, they can bring their gifts to the forefront. That's what our job is. And not just in this industry, but especially in this industry. The reason designers do what they do is to bring their gifts to the world. And if we don't create a space where those designers can bring their gifts to the world, then we're all going to suffer for it. So if Mannington can put more time in their day, support what they're trying to do, educate them, help them, partner with them, all in the service of their customer, their client, the outcome of the space, then, we're really doing a service to the world. And that's how my company goes into the world, is that we are here to serve. That's what our company is about. Mannington Commercial is here to do good. We are here to serve. We take a lot of care in producing, manufacturing in the United States, very high-performing products of all categories. Hi, this is Cindy Kaufman. I'm Vice President of Marketing. Mannington Commercial is always a proud sponsor of Design Nerds Anonymous, my favorite podcast.
All right, and now back to our show. So I know while your communication framework typically focuses on people helping companies clarify their message to grow their business, we're going to be translating that today for just a communication style. So maybe you could start by explaining your basic framework to our listeners.
What I think people need to understand first off is that anybody that you're communicating to, right? All of us that are receiving messages every day are receiving so many messages. Just in the commercial space, every single person is receiving between 3,000 and 5,000 commercial messages a day. So that's just advertising. Then you add on top of that emails, personal interactions, social media, face-to-face conversations, books that they're reading. It's just on and on. And here's where people foundationally start, is that we actually have a limited amount of brain space to process information. When you have to process information, you burn calories. So the more that you have to think, the more calories you burn. That's why if you're in a work meeting all day long, you're exhausted by the end of it. And it has nothing to do with you got up and worked out or anything. You're like, why am I so tired? I just sat here all day. You actually worked out. You can tell people you got your workout in because your brain is burning calories. Now, here's the thing that your brain is also trying to do. It's trying to conserve calories because it knows that if an emergency situation comes up at any given moment, like you're in a work meeting and all of a sudden a car comes crashing through the window, you need to have the brain power, the calories left to get out alive. So your brain, what it's doing is it's in those moments, every piece of information that's coming our way, it's trying to decide, do I need to pay attention to this information or not? Period. Literally, will this information help me survive and thrive? Or could it burn all the calories and kill me?
I love that we're thinking about surviving in an office setting, but it's true.
It's how your brain works. And that's what a lot of people don't understand when they're going into a communication style, whether it's with your team or customers. That's what's going on in their brains. Their brain is going, I need to understand information quickly, and I need to understand in a way that shows me how it helps me survive or thrive. And if I can't do that, I'm actually going to tune out. The average person daydreams 30% of their day. That's actually a survival mechanism. We are designed to tune out boring information and information that doesn't contribute to our survival and thriving. So if you and I were in a football stadium, I can guarantee if I got on a microphone at a football stadium and I said, hey, everybody, how many chairs are in the stadium? Maybe one person who works there would be able to tell you, but nobody else would tell you. If I said, hey, everybody, where's the exits? Do you know where the exits are? Every single person would be able to raise their hand. That's what I'm talking about, of where our brain automatically goes, information I need, information I don't, ignore. So that's where people start foundationally. And I think businesses and leaders don't understand that. Their brain is going, if I read this email and I don't understand why I need it to survive and thrive, and I can't understand it quickly, my brain goes, that email could kill me. Ignore it.
So we're back to the lizard brain. We're tapping into our lizard brain here.
100%. So before I explain what StoryBrand is, we need to understand that's the foundational piece of where everybody's at. What we do at StoryBrand is we use the power of story to communicate clearly, to communicate ideas, to compel people to move to action. Story is a sense-making device. When you understand how the rules of story work, every story really is the same because it has these rules that helps authors, writers distill information down in a way that is compelling to an audience and ultimately moves them to action. When somebody experiences a good story that follows the rules, that is compelling, we actually experience narrative transportation. We as an audience put ourselves into that story. So if you've ever been in a movie and cried or laughed or jumped when something scary happened, you've experienced narrative transportation. The research shows that the better the story, and really the more the story follows the rules and makes sense, the better the story, the higher levels of narrative transportation people experience. The higher level of narrative transportation people experience, the more influence that story has on their thoughts and actions. So the better the story, the more likely you are going to move people, either their emotions or their actions. So we take all of these principles at StoryBrand and we apply it specifically to marketing and communication. And we say, how do you help people in any environment when you're communicating to any individual? How do you communicate in a way that helps them see themselves in the story? So that story then has an influence on them and moves them to action. Our specific focus is in marketing. So how do you create a website that people can see their story in? How do you create emails? But this also works for keynotes when you're getting up in front of a company and challenging them to something or speaking to an audience. It actually applies to meetings where you're sitting in project meetings. When you understand the story that people are living and invite them into a powerful story that they get to be the hero of, they win and you win. So what we do is we take the principles of story. There are 7 of them that are in every story, and we help people craft messaging around that. The 7 elements of story are this. These are in every good story. First, you have a hero that wants something. That's number 1. You need to know that a hero wants something and it has to be really clear. If it's vague, it's not a good story. Second, that hero has to encounter a problem. This is really the hook of the story that makes the story interesting. If there is no problem in the story, it's not an interesting story. If Jason Bourne finds out his identity at the very first part of the movie and then just is walking around Paris eating ice cream, not an interesting story. We have to have a problem. So those 2 pieces really kick off a story. The hero who wants something and then encounters a problem that gets in the way of that. Then that hero must meet a guide. That's the 3rd element. Somebody who comes along and helps them win the day. In big blockbuster movies, this is like Yoda, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Gandalf, Haymitch. These are people who have won the day already and help the hero win. The 4th element is that the guide gives the hero a plan. It's a very clear path forward to win the day. You'll hear the phrase in almost every movie, what's the plan, or here's the plan. It's this huge, overwhelming problem. It's impossible. And then they sweep everything off the table and put down a map and go, here's the plan. You just see it.
In a great voice. Yeah.
Yeah. So we see there's a way forward. Then the 5th element is that there's a moment that the hero has to be called to action. This can't just go on forever and ever. So the hero has to find a moment where they're in or out. That's why you have so many ticking time bombs in movies. 24 hours before this happens, or 2 days before this happens, or 10 minutes before the bomb's going to go off. It forces the hero to be in or out. And then the last 2 elements are we have to know the stakes in the story. What are the positive and negative things that can be won or lost if the hero wins the day? That's every blockbuster movie you've ever seen. It has those 7 elements in it. When you're creating communication, say as a company, as a leader, when you're talking to people, what you need to understand, based on what I said earlier about what our brain is always looking for, our brain is looking to help us survive and thrive. You need to position your audience, whoever you're talking to, as the hero of the story. So if it's in marketing, your customer's the hero. If you are a leader, it's people on your team who are the hero. And before you stand up, say in a team meeting and say, hey, everybody, we need everybody to return to work 3 days out of the week. This is a company mandate. We are doing this whether you like it or not, and trying to get everybody to come back in. Instead of doing that, what you have to identify is, what do those employees actually want in this context? They want connection. They want extra time off because they're able to do things faster. We're going to name that, right? So instead of we're returning to the office 3 days a week, you would start by saying, everybody here wants to meet their deadlines and we want to accomplish our projects with excellence. And you want everybody in the room to nod. So that's the first thing. That's what they want. Then you have to establish a problem. Here's the problem. We are wasting a lot of time emailing back and forth and missing out on your genius in the office. And then you position yourself as the guide. I get it. I love working from home, but I hate missing deadlines. And I hate that we're not getting the best out of this. And then you just bring in the sense of, but I've figured out how to do this. Then you give a specific plan, very clear plan. Here's how we're going to overcome this problem. And then we name a 3-step plan. Then we give a call to action. Here's how we're going to launch this on this day with these people, very specific. And then you put the stakes in the story. What can be won or lost based on whether they engage or not. And you say, hey, if we all do this, we're going to win. And not here's what you're going to win. Here's what you're going to win. Here's what you're going to win. If we don't do this, here's what you lose. Here's what you lose. Here's what you lose. And if you can, as a leader, create just those talking points before you go into any meeting or any project, or create a communication for your website or anything like that, it keeps the story focused on your audience, makes them the hero, invites them into a story that they get to win. And now everything you tell them is about their survival and thriving, and it's not about you.
Mm-hmm. I love that you have this 7-step full version, but you also have a mini version. I've heard Donald Miller, your founder, do this live on stage that's along the lines of, many people have problem X. We help you solve Y by doing Z. So talk us through that a little bit for people that may not be familiar.
Yeah. So what I explained was a full story, but this would be a short story, right? And really what you want to create in a short story is problem, solution, success. Those are the 3 elements. And so when somebody asks, what are we trying to accomplish, or what's the purpose of this meeting? You don't start with the purpose of the meeting. That's the solution. When you start with the solution, you're making yourself the hero of the story. If you start with their problem or the problem they're feeling or experiencing, now you position them as the hero and the story is about them. So for me, if somebody asked me what I do, which you did, I actually gave this formula. You said, explain StoryBrand. And I didn't say we are a marketing and branding company. I said so many people struggle because I started with that. What that does is anybody who actually feels that is going, oh, that's my story. I struggle with that. I don't know how to communicate well. I don't feel like I'm accomplishing everything. So let's just say you're working on a design project for an office space. Instead of going in and go, hey, we create beautiful office spaces, you might say, these days when it's so hard to get people into the office, you need a space where people feel welcome, warm, and can accomplish the tasks they need. I come in and am an interior designer who actually designs space to fit your needs so that people love being in the office and you can actually get value out of the space where you work. That was the problem they're experiencing, the solution, the success, right? So their success. The only part you talk about you is that middle part where you're describing what you offer. The beginning and end is all about your audience. What problem are they experiencing? You're the solution in the middle. And then what does their life look like at the end? Problem, solution, success.
And you make it sound so easy. You just rattle these off. We don't even realize what voodoo you're doing as you're talking through this. We'll be right back. Let's dive back into the episode. Talk to us about some of the complications that I've described with these project teams today. We know that there's double the number of people. We know there's people that don't necessarily have the same background. Some are very well versed in commercial real estate and decisions, designing spaces and the intricacies of that. Some are just not. Some of them have a lot of time to get involved in the weeds. Other times we have project team members that seem to show up at the 11th hour with strong opinions. How can this truly marketing and communication and storytelling framework help translate, and what success will it drive for our listeners if they were able to adopt this?
There's 2 things that jump to mind for somebody leading a meeting or leading a team or leading a project. The first is Every time you get up in front of a team meeting or you're sending an email or you're trying to get people to do something, you're trying to move people to action, do not start with what you want them to do. Start with the problem that they're experiencing that what you're going to ask them to do will solve. Always start there. That's huge. So when I get up in front of my team, let's say we're doing a team meeting for like our mid-year kickoff, I don't start with, hey guys, here's where we're headed this next year. I start with, hey, we had a plan in the beginning of the year, but here's the things that have gotten in the way that have held us back. And I just go problem, 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 problem. And I'm naming all these problems that they're feeling, like our company is feeling, but also they're feeling. And then I go into, so this is why we're doing this meeting today. And then I bring the solution. And then I go, when this meeting is done, here's what we're going to be able to do. So if you're doing project emails that are summarizing things, if you are starting a meeting, always start with the problem you're going to solve. It gets people focused. And even everything you're going to talk about this meeting, you're not getting into the weeds. You're always bringing it back to this is the problem we're solving. That's number one. Number two, in a good story, any story, the guide in a story is actually the strongest character in the film. Most people think the hero is the strongest character, but it's not. It's the guide. If you think about Star Wars, the strongest characters are Obi-Wan, they are Yoda. It's not Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is insecure. It's up and down, all over the place. Even Mary Poppins is the guide in Mary Poppins. She's not the hero. The dad's the hero. He's the one who's on the transformational journey. So the strongest character is always the guide. So when you are a leader, when you step into a role of guide and helping your team win and helping them overcome these problems, it does nobody any favors for you to shrink, to apologize for why you're there. Hey guys, I know it's tough getting together. I know this is hard. No. I hate meetings as much as you. No. What you've done in that moment is you're trying to get them to have empathy for you, which actually makes you the hero of the story or the victim of the story, or sometimes the villain. You're positioning yourself as a villain in those moments. You want to be the guide. That doesn't mean you come in aggressively. It means you come in with two elements, empathy and authority. So when you're standing in front of your team, you lead with a lot of empathy. I understand. I have been there. Not that you're currently there, that you have been there in the past. That's really key. It's empathy is, I have been in your shoes. So lead with a lot of empathy and then lead with authority. And authority is evidence-based success. Authority is not, I am in charge, so listen to me. Authority is, I have the authority because I can show you some evidence-based success. So anytime throughout a meeting or an email, anything, as a guide, that's your job. It's not to shrink. It's not to apologize. It's to stand firm in the path that you're going in and the story. You're going to help them win. So it's always thinking, how am I going to help everybody in this room win? Which makes the company win, which makes you win, all the things. But the easiest ways to do that is with empathy and authority. So you're always sprinkling those two elements in the whole process. Be empathetic, but also show evidence-based success. So that's really what I would say for leaders is one, always communicate by starting with talking about the problem that people are experiencing, that whatever you're moving them towards is going to solve. Two, be a strong guide. Do not shrink in your guidance. Do not apologize. Do not make yourself the victim. Do not make yourself the villain. Be the guide and do it with a ton of empathy and a ton of authority.
Again, you sound brilliant. It just rolls off your tongue. But this may not be easy for everyone to make some of these shifts in these communications, especially when no one has extra time today. I noticed that you are a speaker at Inbound 23, I believe, if I'm not incorrect. In my deep research on you, I also saw a fabulous short video of you in the Minneapolis airport, which I would encourage everyone to go look for because it was so entertaining.
I'm not even sure which one you're talking about.
Oh, man. I'll have to send it to you. It's good. It's funny. You were apparently with a family member stuck in the Minneapolis airport, and it's you on the moving walkways, like swimming in the air.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go. It was fabulous. It made my day. Yeah. But as my internet stalking, I did see that you were a speaker on AI. So my question to you is, if this is not a skill that comes naturally to people or people are moving too fast, are there ways that AI can help us craft our important communication? Maybe a critical email, maybe an outline for a big project team meeting. Have you seen ways that we can use tools to support our weaknesses?
We actually have a tool that we offer people. It's what we call a brand script. And it's a free version of basically everything I'm talking about, creating talking points for the 7 elements of a story. And your listeners can go to storybrand.com/SB7. It's basically this blank piece of paper that has boxes to fill in for all the 7 elements that I just talked about. What does your customer want? What's their problem? How are you positioning yourself as a guide with empathy and authority? What's plan? Call to action, success and failure. And if you can take 60 seconds before you're getting ready to go into a big meeting that maybe you've already been frustrated about or getting ready to give a big talk and write down, fill in those boxes and put down the talking points. That's not going to be your whole speech. You're not even going to use all of it necessarily. What you want to do is make sure that you're sprinkling those points in throughout the conversation. Really, for me, even when I'm getting ready to do a talk, sometimes when I'm getting ready to be on the sales call or like our meeting for our mid-year kickoff, I fill one of those out. I physically do even. I can do it in my head, but I actually physically fill one out because it keeps me disciplined and focused. That's really what story does. I think I said at the beginning, story is a sense-making device when you follow the rules because you have 5,000 stories you can tell. You have 500 illustrations. You have so many thoughts that are going on in your brain. But if you understand what problem you're solving, it filters out all that other information. So if you have this filter, then you can go, oh, actually, it makes it so much easier. I have one controlling idea, one narrative that then I can use to craft this. You're going to fill in a lot of color. You're going to be more creative. But if you have that just very generic talking point script, you can stay on story. So that's where I would say for most people, I would start there at the storybrand.com/SB7, and you can just put the points in there. Then, of course, in AI, you can take that and you can plug that in to say, give me 7 talking points for my TED Talk that help a customer solve this problem or help an audience member solve this. You can begin then to expand it and play with it a little bit more. Give me 4 social media posts based on this problem people are experiencing. Give me or captions for social media. Give me a title, give me a book, give me a blog article. You can just start there. But if you don't have that first piece of what problem you're trying to solve, what value you want to offer people, then going to AI won't matter because garbage in, garbage out, right? So if you don't already know where you're headed, then AI is actually going to make it worse.
It's the old, I would have written a shorter letter, but I didn't have time.
Yes, yes. Here's a little tip for a plan. Most people can really only memorize and pay attention to 3. You should have a 3-point plan. It's a way our brain works. It's called the rule of 3s. It's used in comedy a lot. They talk about rule of 3s, but it's actually how we memorize things. If I was just to say to you right now, if you are to catch on fire, what are you supposed to do?
Stop, drop, and roll.
Yeah. Have you ever caught on fire before and had to stop, drop, and roll?
No, not yet. But I'm still young. Life is still young.
But we all know that. Every listener could probably, like before you even said it, they were answering that question because we've memorized that from when we were a child. When you have an emergency, what number are you supposed to dial?
911.
Yeah. Those are very intentional. That's actually based in design and the way the brain works to help us remember quickly what they are. Even phone numbers, they're not 10 numbers long. They're actually 3 sets of numbers. It's area code, city code, personal code. I still remember my childhood phone number.
Same.
503-838-6437. Now, what happens is, as leaders, if we start going, here's the 10 things we need to accomplish, people won't remember the 10. And they won't follow through with that. Even if you have to accomplish the 10, group them in groups of 3. First, we're going to do phase 1, then we're going to do phase 2, then we're going to do phase 3. The research shows that there's not truthfully that much difference between 3 and 4. There's a little bit of drop off of engagement. Once you go to 5 and 6, it's 75 and 90% drop off of engagement because there's 2 things the brain does. One, it goes, there's too much content. Like I said earlier, too much to remember. I'm burning too many calories. The other weird thing that it does is it says there's 6 steps. We're probably missing 2 or 3. There's actually a FOMO thing, but we view 3 as complete. So if you can keep your plan, your project, that's one of the elements of story, that plan piece right in the middle that the guide gives, be really clear about what the steps are. And then the other thing is the very next step is call to action. People should never walk out of a meeting going, what is my next step? You have to define that. And using deadlines is a gift. Deadlines are a gift. Because anytime you act, there's a risk of losing something, losing time, losing happiness, losing money. So that's why in stories and movies, there has to be a bomb that goes off in 2 minutes. If the bomb's going to go off in 9 months, then they're like, there's no need to run through the airport. I could twist an ankle. But if it's going to go off in 2 minutes, we better sprint and we better knock out this guy. You're really going to throw your life to disarm this bomb in 2 minutes. It's the same thing with projects. You have to give people a deadline, and it should be achievable, but also a little bit of urgency. So say it's due on Thursday. Don't say next week sometime. Be very clear, very specific. That gives them in that moment, and as the process goes, the option truthfully to be in or out. Yes, I'm in. It'll be done by Thursday. Or they in their brain might go, I'm out. And now you have something to hold them accountable to.
I love that because some of these projects, especially in the healthcare realm, can be 3 years running. And by the time the bomb goes off, everything's changed and you got to change everything again. One thing that came to mind is you often have multiple stakeholders. Again, they've doubled. It's a great Forrester stat that says what used to be 2 decision makers is now as many as 14. So sometimes those 14 people have conflicting priorities and goals. So I love the idea of clarity. Any advice to our listeners about when you have multiple committee members, multiple team members that you're trying to persuade to action, probably in the same direction, that have conflicting priorities?
You need to find a way to put them under an umbrella. That's really like the easiest ways to go, all right, so the CFO wants this, but human resources wants this, and the CMO wants this. You have to go, what do they all want? And you have to start there at that umbrella space. When I go into a marketing conference and I walk up on stage, I'm finding the highest level of commonality for everybody in the room. So I walk on stage and I say, everybody in this room wants to grow their business, but here's the problem. And that's it. I just the highest umbrella is everybody wants to grow their business. And sometimes I will go, is there anybody in this room who doesn't want to grow their business? And nobody raises their hand. What that does right in the beginning, every kind of business you can think of in the room. I just brought everybody under one umbrella to start the story. So when you're dealing with people who have multiple priorities, you don't actually want to name 7 priorities. We're here because you want this, you want this, you want this. No. What's the umbrella statement that everybody in the room would nod their head, which, a lot of times is, look, we're all here because we want to grow the business, or we're all here because we want to actually compete in the marketplace, or we're all here because we want to do excellent work. Give me a high-level statement that everybody can buy into and then dive into the story.
Really great advice. All right, I have one more closing question, but before I ask you that, I just want to open it up. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you think our listeners should really be mindful of?
I think the biggest thing for me when it comes down to it, I study story all the time and I study how this all works. And really what we all need to understand is there's really 4 characters in every story. The villain, the victim, the hero, and the guide. Those are really the 4 primary characters in any story. And they're in story because they're in all of us really at any given moment. In any day, I can play all 4 of those characters. The victim, when you live in victim mentality, the victim in a story really is designed to make the villain look bad and the hero look good. That's really why they exist. No good stories are written about victims who stay victims. If they transform, then they become a hero, if you overcome your circumstances. When it comes to the hero and the villain, a very interesting thing you can see is that typically in stories, the villain and the hero have the same backstory of pain. You can see even in a villain, they have a scar on their face because you go, oh, they went through some hard stuff. The difference is that a villain works to revenge the pain and a hero works to redeem it. Then, as you move through life and you overcome your own pain and you begin redeeming it, then what you're moving to is the guide space, where your job is to actually help others redeem their pain and overcome their problems. So the highest level of character in any story is that guide character. For me, like I said, you can vacillate between all four, but my ultimate goal is to live in that guide space. What I would say to everybody is that I've given a ton of tips. I've given a lot of really specific stuff. I've gotten into some theory about communication. But ultimately, if you can work to position yourself as a guide in any situation, whether that's in a meeting, whether that's in marketing, whether that's actually delivering on service, that you actually live in a lot of empathy and be confident in your authority and help other people win, you're going to win. And I think that you could forget everything else I said and just go, I want to be a guide. I want to be a guide. And if I keep telling myself that in those moments where I feel like a victim, in those moments where I'm tempted to become a villain, or those moments where I just am living in the hero space, I always am working towards how can I help other people win based on what I've experienced in redemption of the pain. And that's what I would hope for everybody who's listening.
I think that's amazing advice. And I'm even logging some places I need to take that mentality in my own work life as well. My last question for you is one that I'm asking every single interviewee this season, which is looking ahead. Given the discussion we've had today, what is one word to describe what most excites you about the future?
Audacity.
Audacity. Tell me why.
There are a lot of things to be afraid of in the world. Fear often causes me to shrink. It causes me to be afraid to try new technologies, to try new things because I might fail, to invite other people along because I'm going to look stupid. And if I can live with some audacity and I can live in a spirit of audaciousness of like, I'm going to be audacious in who I am, in how I lead, in what I'm trying to learn and what I'm trying to accomplish and the people I'm trying to bring along with me, not in a flippant way, not in an arrogant way, but in the way that allows me to live out of my true self and help other people do that. To me, that's audacity. I have the audacity to live out of my strength. I have the audacity to invite other people into that story and take them with me. I have the audacity to learn new things and fail. That is the world that I want to live in, instead of going, oh crap, all this new technology, all this new things, it's too questioning, I need to shrink. No, I want to be audacious in who I am and who I bring with me.
I feel like you need a t-shirt that just says audacious or maybe a hat, a sticker. This can be a whole new line of merch.
I'm in.
Today's conversation with Dr. JJ Peterson was a masterclass in communication strategy, especially when it comes to managing up. We explored how the power of storytelling can be a game changer for leaders at any level, offering a clear framework to communicate with clarity, build trust, and drive action within project teams. Whether it's about defining the problem, crafting a compelling narrative, or simply positioning yourself as the guide with empathy and authority, these techniques are invaluable navigating the complexities of today's business environment. If you want more on how end-user decision-making is evolving, I want to invite you to download our full ThinkLab report for deeper insights at info.thinklab.design/end-user decision-making. You can also find that link in the show notes. For this and more, including articles, digital seminars, and additional content from ThinkLab, visit thinklab.design/podcasts. If you loved today's episode, be sure to share on LinkedIn or Instagram, and don't forget to tag us so we can reshare. Design Nerds Anonymous is a proud member of the Surround Podcast Network by Sandow. For more design and architecture podcasts, visit surroundpodcasts.com. This podcast is edited and produced by the wonderful Hannah Vitti. Special thanks to her and the entire podcast team, including Rachel Senator and Rob Schulte. We'll be back to inspire more new ways to think about this intersection of business and design. Up next week is our exploration of the number one thing driving risk: anxiety. Want to find out what it is? Tune in.